In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Chosen one, have you felt the shadow near you? The strange weight in the air that no one else seems to notice? The way time bends around your thoughts and your sleep no longer gives you rest? This isn't anxiety, this isn't depression, this is something deeper. A shift has taken place in the spirit realm, and heaven has called your name, not to celebrate your rise, but to announce your death. Yes, death, not of your physical body, but of your former self, the one that tried to fit in, the one that bowed to fear, the one that dimmed its light just to survive. That version of you cannot come forward. It cannot cross the line that is now being drawn in the spirit, because something holy has begun, and heaven has no interest in improving who you were. Heaven is here to resurrect who you truly are. You were never meant to blend, never meant to be palatable, never meant to obey culture over calling. So now, in this hour, an angel has spoken your name in a realm beyond time. And when heaven speaks your name, realignment begins. That's why everything feels like it's falling apart. That's why you feel like you're losing your mind, your friends, your identity. Because the version of you that was built in survival cannot walk in destiny. The mask is cracking, the performance is ending, and what you're experiencing is not confusion, it's divine confrontation. God is not punishing you, He's purifying you. He's not destroying you, He's delivering you from false attachments, from shallow distractions, from every imitation of purpose that once kept you busy but never fulfilled. This message is not for the masses. This is not for the casual seeker. This is for the called, the ones who know they were never normal, the ones who have been haunted by a sense that they were born for something holy, something that doesn't make sense in this world. And if that's you, then this message isn't content. It's a transmission, a divine signal from the courts of heaven. The old you is standing at the edge of a grave, but this is not a tragedy, it's a threshold. On the other side is not loss but life, not shame but glory, not fear but fire. If you stay until the end of this message, something inside you will collapse and something eternal will rise. This isn't just about healing, this is about rebirth. Because what is dying is the imitation, the illusion, the version of you that was never ordained. And what is rising is the truth. So take a breath. Let the old ghosts weep. Let the old stories scream. Let the old pain echo. It cannot come with you. It will not survive the light that is now being poured into you. If this word is already shaking something in your spirit, if you feel the rumble of rebirth already stirring, then comment 33 below. That number marks divine communication, spiritual resurrection, and the awakening of the real you. Like, subscribe, stay with this message, because this is not the beginning of another journey. This is the end of who you were and the rise of who you really are. The summoning began with a silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses in on your bones. The kind that feels like a warning. You felt it before you saw it. The atmosphere changed, the veil thinned, and in a moment that didn't belong to time, you knew something sacred was approaching. Then the vision came, not with noise or chaos, but with a stillness so heavy it silenced even your fears. An angel stood before you, not as a fantasy, not as a dream, but as a messenger from the realm beyond reason. This was not comfort, this was a summons. You have been called to die, not physically, not tragically, but spiritually, gloriously. The angel did not announce a promotion. The angel announced a death. And with that word, something in you already began to tremble, because deep down you already knew to step into what God ordained. The version of you built by fear, ego, and survival would have to burn. This is the price of awakening. You don't just wake up, you unravel. You don't just rise in light, you rot in the grave of who you were. Your pride, your plans, your personas, they are the offering. The altar is your life. The flame, it's holy fire. God does not call the false self. God does not anoint the image. God waits for the real you to emerge. And the only way that happens is through death. You see, you were raised by a world that taught you how to perform, how to protect yourself with charm, how to wear confidence like armor, how to make noise and call it purpose. But heaven isn't moved by noise. Heaven answers truth, and the truth is you were never what you built. You were always what you hid. The sacred essence inside you, the one you buried to survive, the one you silenced to fit in. That is what the angel came to resurrect. A resurrection cannot happen without death. And so the dismantling began. Your friendships shook, your routines broke, your cravings shifted, your identity fractured, not because you were falling apart, but because you were being peeled open. The real you was under the layers, and now heaven was digging. This is not the enemy, this is extraction. God is pulling the true you out from under the debris of expectation, pain, and ego, and it will feel like death because it is, but not to harm you, to reveal you. Chosen one, you are not being punished, you are being summoned. And the price of that calling is everything false. You cannot carry shadows into the light. You cannot preach healing while hiding your own wounds. You cannot embody fire without walking through flame. The angel did not say, fix yourself. The angel said, die. Die to the version of you that relied on validation. Die to the habits that diluted your power. Die to the distractions that numbed your discernment. Die to the timeline you created in fear. Because what heaven is about to release cannot be held by hands that still grasp for control. Let the illusion fall. Let the mask melt. Let the pride break. This is not humiliation. It is a holy invitation. You are being summoned not to become something new, but to finally become what you always were. And the moment you stop resisting the death of the false self, you will feel it, the shift, the rise, the wind of heaven circling your name like fire. The summoning has begun. The sacrifice of self, they called it suffering, you called it loss, but heaven called it surgery, not the kind done with steel, but with spirit. The kind that removes not your flesh, but your false self, the illusions, the attachments, the counterfeit dreams, the voices that weren't yours, the plans that weren't divine, all of it carved out of your being, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The angel never warned you of pain, he warned you of death, the kind that ends the body, the kind that ends the version that couldn't carry the crown. The version that needed applause, the one that compromised to be accepted, the one that clung to people who had no permission to walk with your purpose, the one who settled, the one who silenced themselves to survive. To be chosen is to be crucified before you were crowned. That's why it felt like everything was being stripped. Not just your comfort, but your connections, your habits, your rhythm. One by one, the things you thought defined you began to fall apart. God didn't rip them away to leave you naked. He removed them to reveal the real you underneath, the original blueprint, the uncorrupted soul. The loneliness, that was the altar. The silence, that was the anesthesia. The pain, that was the blade of heaven. doing what only love could authorize. It didn't feel holy at the time, it felt like death. And it was. Your ego died, your pride died, your spiritless living died, your addiction to outcomes, to timelines, to control, all of it had to go, because glory can rest on a fractured identity. Power can be trusted with a person still in love with their chains. And heaven doesn't crown someone still obsessed with being liked by those who betrayed them. So you were taken low to the pit, to the forgotten places. Text went unanswered, prayers turned to groans. Your joy collapsed under questions heaven refused to answer. You weren't just confused, you were crushed. But it wasn't random, it was refinement. Heaven wasn't punishing you, it was pulling you out of everything false, shallow, borrowed. And when you wouldn't let go, the Spirit allowed the world to fall apart around you, because some awakenings require everything to die before anything can be born. This was your earthly death, the kind no doctor can diagnose, the kind that happens in the shadows, in silent nights, where no one sees you breaking, the kind of death where you feel like your reflection no longer knows your name. You didn't just lose things, you lost yourself, or so you thought. In reality, you were never losing yourself. You were losing what you were never meant to keep, the job that defined your worth, the relationship that numbed your voice, the circle that praised you for playing small, the version of you that survived but never truly lived. That version had to die, and that death felt like suffering. But in heaven, it was called the birthing, because spiritual awakening is violent in the beginning. It's not just light and love, it's tearing and purging. It's watching the dream you prayed for be dismantled, only to realize God never gave you that dream, your fear did. You wept, you screamed, you begged God to fix it, and heaven responded, not by restoring what you wanted, but by revealing who you really are. Your ego screamed, but your soul was being born. The version of you addicted to approval had to die. The version of you terrified of being alone had to die. The version that compromised to be chosen by people who couldn't see your light had to be buried. Because God wasn't trying to improve your old self. He was trying to resurrect your true self. He was trying to resurrect your true self. The sickness wasn't punishment. It was pause, a divine disruption to force you inward, to strip the noise, to make stillness the surgery table where heaven could get to the real wound. The depression wasn't weakness. It was a signal that your soul was outgrowing the shell you were living in, that the light inside you was pressing against a life too small for what God planted in you. The betrayal wasn't the enemy winning. It was heaven tearing down counterfeits, the mask being torn off so you could see what was never real, so you could stop bowing to people who would never bleed for you. The pain was not a detour, it was a portal. You walked through fire and thought it would destroy you. Instead, it delivered you from people pleasing, from spiritual numbness, from the life you built to survive instead of the life God designed for you to fulfill destiny. And when everything was quiet, when you had no followers to impress, no roles to perform, no one clapping, that's when your spirit started to speak. That's when you realized you weren't broken, you were becoming. This is the paradox of the chosen. Your rise comes through your ruin, your clarity through chaos, your calling through crisis, and the path to your purpose always leads through the graveyard of your ego. They said you were falling apart. In heaven, you are falling into alignment. Because only when everything collapses do you finally stop holding on to what can't hold you. Only in the ashes do you hear the still small voice say, now you're ready to rise. And rise you did. Not all at once, but day by day, tear by tear, truth by truth, until your spirit stood up inside your broken body and said, this is not the end of me. This is the beginning. That moment, quiet, holy, unnoticed by the world, was your spiritual awakening. Not because everything got better, but because you remembered who you are. Not what you do, not who they said you were, but who God whispered you'd become when He carved your name into eternity's scroll. If you felt this kind of holy death and you know something deeper is being born in its place, comment 999 below. That's the number of completion, the end of the false, the beginning of the eternal. They buried you, but you were seed. They thought it was over for you. They watched the collapse of your life like spectators at a funeral. Heads shook, tongues whispered. Some mourned with crocodile tears. Others celebrated in secret. It looked like the end. Your name faded from conversations. Your presence no longer filled rooms. You disappeared, not just physically, but energetically. The world closed its mouth around your memory like a tomb. But heaven saw something else entirely, because you weren't buried, you were planted. Like a seed hidden in darkness, pressed under pressure, surrounded by silence. Nothing glamorous, no applause, just stillness, isolation, and the slow death of everything shallow. And while the world moved on, your roots began to dig deep, silent, steady, sacred. You see, when a seed is planted, it must break open to become what it was created to be. That cracking, that wasn't your failure, that was your becoming. Yes, your dream shattered, your heart split, your identity fractured, but that wasn't destruction. That was divine transformation. Because heaven never builds destiny on surfaces. It digs, it disrupts, it breaks the shell so the life inside can finally live. The enemy called it your breakdown. God called it your breaking open. And you weren't the first. Joseph was thrown into a pit before he ruled the palace. David was anointed in secret and hunted before he held a crown. Esther was hidden before she was revealed. Even Christ, the Son of God, had to be crucified, buried, and sealed in a tomb before resurrection power could flood the earth. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. John 12:24. You didn't die in vain. You were never forsaken. The silence wasn't heaven turning its back. It was heaven turning the soil. Your suffering was a signal to the spirit realm. Something eternal was being born. And now you are rising. Not just returning, not just recovering. You're resurrecting with roots. The kind of roots that make storms irrelevant. The kind that no shake when people walk away. The kind that no walls grown in God can't be undone by man. This is your phoenix moment. Not myth, not metaphor, but spiritual law. The fire that was sent to consume you became your consecration. The ashes they thought would bury you became the soil of your awakening. And like the seed that cracked open, you didn't disappear. You descended into the deeper places of your soul. So when you rise, you're not just glowing, you're glowing with substance. Let them watch, let them whisper, because what they see now is not the same version of you that fell. You're not rising to prove anything. You're rising because resurrection is written into your name. The crown is not revenge, it's restoration. That is, if your resurrection, you're not rising with bitterness. You're rising with vision. You see now why it had to happen, why they had to leave, why the doors had to close, why the comfort had to vanish, why the pain had to cut that deep. Because shallow soil produces shallow roots. And shallow roots can carry a heavy calling. But you were always meant to carry weight, the kingdom weight. So heaven had to make sure your foundation could hold the future. So yes, they buried you, but they didn't realize you were seed. And seed by nature doesn't die. It transforms. That's the divine contradiction of the chosen ones. What looked like a funeral was actually a birth canal. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. What looked like betrayal was the beginning of your becoming. So rise, not with rage, but with reverence, because now you know the grave couldn't hold you. It was never a grave to begin with. It was a greenhouse. You're sprouting into places they said you'd never enter. You're growing into rooms that once ignored you. You're flowering in fields where you once bled. And every petal, every root, every leaf, all carries the memory of where you've been and who you've become. If this word watered something in your spirit, comment 333 below. That number signals divine alignment, spiritual resurrection, and the unfolding of purpose. The realm of the resurrected you doesn't live where you used to. Not physically, not spiritually. You may walk the same streets, pass the same faces, hear the same noise, but something unspoken has shifted. You are no longer in the realm of the living dead. This is what it means to be resurrected. Not just emotionally healed, not just mentally strong, not just physically standing, but spiritually recoded. You've been rewired by heaven. You don't just live, you carry a different frequency now. One that the old world can no longer interpret. One that darkness can no longer touch. You are not arrogant. The things that used to pull you down, they feel small now. Conversations that once drained you now reveal their hollowness. People you used to fight to keep now, their presence feels like static. The guilt is gone. The anxiety that once stalked you dissipates before it can even speak, because you don't respond from trauma anymore, you respond from truth. Your triggers are disappearing, your sensitivity is sharpening, and your boundaries are no longer made of fear. They are formed by revelation. This is the realm of the resurrected. It's not a location, it's a vibration, a dimension of existence where clarity is constant, where peace is protection, where presence is power. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. Your energy speaks before you do. Your light enters the room before your name is called, because you are no longer surviving, you are reigning. And it's not about ego. It's not about pretending you're above others. And it's about knowing that you've been recalibrated to a realm that most won't understand until they too have died to who they were. You walk among them, but you are no longer one of them. This isn't loneliness, it's divine distinction. Jesus said it plainly, you are not of this world even as I am not of it. And now you finally understand what he meant. You don't belong to the systems anymore. You don't belong to the systems anymore. You don't belong to the noise, the drama, the empty rituals, the surface level exchanges. You don't fight the same anymore, because battles on lower frequencies can't reach resurrected one. What used to require your energy now fades in your silence. What used to sting now reveals itself as spiritual training. and what used to keep you circling old patterns now looks laughable, because you no longer rotate, you ascend. You've become a portal, a walking gate, a carrier of kingdom resonance. You know things before they happen. You feel shifts before they reach the surface. You speak and chains break, not because you're loud, but because your frequency is holy. This is what they don't teach in shallow spaces. Resurrection isn't just about rising, it's about relocating. You're no longer on the battlefield you used to die on, because you didn't just survive the war, you transcended it. You've crossed over into the realm where joy is strategy, where rest is power, where obedience is warfare, where presence is prophecy. You know now, the real battle was never external, it was internal. And now that you've been resurrected, your presence alone disrupts darkness. You don't chase anymore, you don't beg, you don't explain, because people can't comprehend what they haven't encountered. And most haven't encountered the realm you live in now. So yes, you walk in the same body, but your spirit is untouchable. Not because of pride, but because of the process. You've been refined, purged, cracked open, poured out, filled again. The old you had to defend your light. This version of you just walks in it. And those who try to re-enter your life through old patterns, they can't find the door anymore, because that door is gone. That level is closed. That address is no longer active. You didn't block them, you ascended beyond the signal of their frequency. You are in the realm of the resurrected now. And up here the air is holy. If this word confirmed what your spirit has been sensing, comment zeros below. That number represents new dimension, spiritual mastery, divine protection. You are not in hiding, you are in higher ground. You've risen for a reason, and your next assignment waits at this new altitude. Let me know when you're ready for part 7. The crown of contradiction. You were marked even in misery. The final revelation. You died to become immortal. You didn't just survive, you transcended. What they buried was not your end, it was your ignition. What they called brokenness was actually your blueprint. What they tried to erase became the very fire that wrote your name into eternity. This is the final revelation. You had to die to live forever. This is the paradox of the chosen, the ones set apart, the ones crushed, silenced, misunderstood. You didn't just lose a job, a person, a plan. You lost a version of yourself that was never truly alive. And though it felt like grief, heaven called it glory. Because immortality isn't a body that never dies, it's a spirit that never bows. And now you are no longer the same. You're not just a person, you're a living prophecy, a walking scroll, a vessel of divine contradiction. You are the proof that resurrection is real. Not just for Christ, but for those who choose to follow Him beyond the grave of ego. Let's name it plainly, your ego had to die. The false identity that needed applause, the mask that begged for validation, the personality you curated to fit into rooms that couldn't house your light. It was made of mirrors, and heaven shattered them one by one. Your fear had to die, fear of being seen, fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of loss, fear of hearing God's voice and actually obeying. The fear that convinced you small was safe. That fear was an idol, and it was overthrown. Your people-pleasing had to die the exhaustion of being what everyone else needed, the quiet betrayal of your own spirit every time you said yes when your soul screamed no. That addiction to being needed burned in the fire. Your trauma had to die, not because it wasn't real, but because it couldn't rain heaven. Let it teach, shape, mark you, but it would not define you. You stopped surviving in pieces. You rose in wholeness. You weren't just dying, you were being disentangled. And now you rise, not in pride, not in vengeance, but in divine fire. You walk differently, you speak with weight, you no longer negotiate with demons pretending to be friends. You no longer dance around your calling to protect the comfort of others. You are not what they remember, you are what God always saw. And the world doesn't know what to do with you now. You are too soft to be hard, too fierce to be passive, too holy for systems, too wild for religion, too deep for shallow circles, too awake to fall asleep again. You are uncontainable because you died to everything that once confined you. They don't recognize you, they won't. You've been reborn through fire and silence. You carry too much oil to be ordinary. You carry too much presence to be overlooked. You are not the echo, you are the voice. This is the moment of divine confirmation. The voice that once whispered in dreams now speaks with thunder in your spirit. Chosen one, welcome to your true self. You are no longer a name in the graveyard of potential. You are the reason your bloodline will remember this generation as the one that broke the curse. You are the one who said yes when others ran. You are the one who stayed in the fire until your chains melted. You are the one who rose without bitterness, without compromise, without permission. You didn't just change, you ascended. Now your steps are ordered by prophecy. You move different. You feel warfare before it enters the room. You speak in codes that only the awakened understand. You no longer react from wounds, you respond from wisdom. This is spiritual immortality. When your life becomes legacy, before your body even dies, you are eternal because you walk in what was written before time. Let them ask where you've been. Let them wonder how you made it. You don't owe explanations, you carry evidence. Your light exposes lies. Your silence convicts. Your movement causes kingdoms to shift, not because you're seeking glory, but because you walk with it. The assignment on your life is not normal because you are not normal. You've become a mirror. People see themselves around you and they either grow or retreat. You've become a map. People don't understand how you navigated the void, but something in your story calls them home. You are the remnant, the last born made first, the one they cast aside, but heaven kept in reserve. And now you are stepping into your final form, the revelation of your immortal identity. This doesn't mean you won't cry. It means your tears water something eternal. It doesn't mean you won't be attacked. It means you can't be touched. It doesn't mean it gets easier. It means your roots are unshakable. So what do you do now? You live, but not just any life. You live fully surrendered. You obey the whispers. You follow the fire. You honor the oil. You walk the tightrope between silence and power, with eyes fixed on the one who called you. This is the final level, where there's no applause. Just presence, just power, just purpose so thick it pulses in your veins. If your soul knows this truth was for you, comment 777. That's not just a number, that's your confirmation. Divine completion, eternal sealing, kingdom commissioning. Chosen one, welcome to the other side of death. Welcome to the frequency that can't be copied. Welcome to the fire that doesn't burn but builds. Welcome to your full self, your final form, your unfiltered light. You are immortal now, because what was born of God in you cannot die, and what was awakened in you can never be buried again. This is your crown. This is your breath. This is your resurrection. This is your forever.